Right, so last night, following the triggering of Article 99 by Secretary General of the UN Antonio Guterres, the UN Security Council met once more to pass a resolution, or try to, for a ceasefire under the terms of the UN Charter, which is effectively an international treaty, and therefore all member states, Israel included, would have to abide by that, and the killing would have to cease in Gaza. The slaughter would have to stop. As we have seen in previous attempts to pass a resolution here, though, the United States used its permanent council member status to veto it, meaning the slaughter, unfortunately, is going to continue in Gaza. The resolution fell despite 13 of the 15 Security Council member states backing it, which is just so twisted, as is the fact the UK chose once again to sit on the fence and get splinters, abstaining on the matter of ending the slaughter of thousands of innocent men, women and children for the sake of taking out a few Hamas operatives, a price Israel consider worth paying, but the rest of the world do not, except, it seems, for the US. So what can be done about them? Well, actually, it seems the UN might have mechanisms in place to do just that. If Joe Biden's administration won't vote to end the killing, then they need removing from the Security Council, perhaps. But how might that be able to be done? Right, so it was as predictable as it was soul-destroying to see as that US Security Council representative raised his hand into the air once again, and an immediate ceasefire in Gaza failed to materialise again. With Article 99 having been triggered by Antonio Guterres, the pressure was on the Security Council to finally reach a resolution to end the killing in Gaza, but nothing at all changed. This was all about stopping the killing in Gaza. Let's not forget. October 7th seems so long ago now. The fatalities that happened in Israel that sparked all of this, now a distant memory due to the overwhelmingly disproportionate response from Israel in Gaza, which is amounting to ethnic cleansing at this point. And when you consider so many eyewitnesses to the Israel attack on the Nova Music Festival and those southern kibbutzes claim many of the deaths that occurred there were at Israeli hands, so-called Hannibal directives, it makes what they are doing in Gaza all the more perverse now when they're saying it's in the name of defending themselves, when it seems they had a hand in the killing of their own people, which is what they are now using to justify what they are doing now in Gaza. And the US again opposed this resolution because, and do remember, this is all about what is happening in Gaza right now, the pressure of Article 99 being triggered, weighing upon them to do their job, and they still opposed it. Because just as before, there was no criticism of Hamas in it, and the US didn't like it. Whatever you think of Hamas and what they did, and do condemn that, I do absolutely condemn that. An occupied state as Gaza is, resisting occupation is their right under international law. And the US, rightfully I feel, is now at the point where it is complicit in war crimes by consistently blocking a ceasefire while supplying arms to Israel. We are never going to get peace for as long as Joe Biden resolutely stands by Israel, and for a man who has backed them to the hilt for decades as the US's foot in the Middle East, the tactical advantage for the US that Israel offers there, he's not likely to do that anytime soon. He's more likely to watch them assimilate Gaza into the Israeli state and push every Palestinian still alive into the Sinai desert. In fact, reinforcing that belief, Biden has just greenlit more weapons for Israel in the full knowledge of who they will be used against and what the consequences of that will be. Another 45,000 tank shells for sale. Who says war doesn't pay? So what can be done about the US using and abusing its privileged position as a permanent member on the Security Council then? Well, actually, the UN's own charter, that de facto international treaty, might just have the answer. Now, the US is a signatory of the Convention for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, the Genocide Convention, which, as I've mentioned before in previous videos, this confers a legal obligation onto the US to prevent genocide, which it seems to me they are very much aiding by refusing to back a ceasefire and actually continuing to supply weaponry to the occupying power. Therefore, the failure to call for a ceasefire may well constitute a violation of the Genocide Convention. Seems like it to me, and their legal obligations under that. But what do you reckon? Blocking a ceasefire while supplying weapons to the aggressor? Do you think the US might be in bother on this score? Looks like aiding and abetting in it to me. And the UK is a little better also in the supply market whilst abstaining. Certainly I'd be intrigued as to what those with knowledge of the relevant law have to say on that matter. Does this make the US party to the dispute between Israel and Palestine then? Are they a vested interest? Well, Biden does keep saying how valuable an asset Israel is to the US. Therefore, is the US, and possibly the UK too, regardless of their position in failing to uphold the Genocide Convention they are signatories of, from a legal standpoint, in violation of that? But the UN itself isn't powerful to do something already. And again, it is in their own charter you have to look at, because just as triggering Article 99 forced the UN Security Council to once again come back to the table and seek a ceasefire resolution, there is another mechanism in place that it seems to me they could use to deal with the US consistently blocking that. And this is Article 27 of the UN Convention, and this concerns the UN Security itself, the Security Council itself. And this consists of 3 rules governing that Security Council, its members, and their conduct. And these rules are: Rule 1, each member of the Security Council shall have 1 vote. Rule 2, decisions of the Security Council on procedural matters shall be made by an affirmative vote of 9 members. And Rule 3, decisions of the Security Council on all other matters shall be made by an affirmative vote of 9 members, including the concurring votes of the permanent members, provided that, in decisions under Chapter 6 and under Paragraph 3 of Article 52, a party to a dispute shall abstain from voting. So it is Rule 3, Article 27.3 in the parlance of the UN Charter that matters here. A party to a dispute shall abstain from voting. In other words, if the US can be judged to be a party here, and there seems to be ample evidence of that, given they are currently supplying arms to Israel, one side in this conflict, therefore they are making a material gain out of what is happening in Gaza, and they are positioning themselves repeatedly against Gaza, they should be abstaining from voting. The same goes for the UK on that basis. Of course, the UK are doing exactly that. But herein lies the rub. Can that be forced? Clearly the US is showing up and voting. Arguably, they should not be. Nobody in the UN seems to be addressing this. So they're failing in part here too, surely, not upholding their own charter. By drawing attention to this, how much more proof than arms sales and consistently blocking ceasefires do they need to act? Well, they mentioned Article 52 in Article 27.3, didn't they? What does that have to say? Does that shed any light? Well, the 3rd paragraph of Article 52, which is the relevant one, states that the Security Council shall encourage the development of pacific settlement of local disputes through such regional arrangements or by such regional agencies, either on the initiative of the states concerned or by reference from the Security Council. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? In other words, the Security Council has an onus incumbent upon them to encourage the development of pacific settlements. And that's not colonising the South Sea Islands, incidentally. That's calling for peaceful resolutions. It is incumbent upon them, therefore, to my mind, any Security Council members supplying arms to Israel, such as the US and UK are doing, the 2 nations either voting against a ceasefire or abstaining on the matter, are automatically precluded from voting in Security Council on the matter of a ceasefire in Gaza. By supplying arms, they are not working towards a peaceful settlement under Article 52, and they are therefore by default in violation of Article 23, which governs their right to vote on the Security Council. And this seems open and shut. The US should be excused from voting on the Security Council on the matter of Gaza and Israel. The UK, by abstaining, actually is doing exactly what they should be doing from the perspective of the UN Charter at any rate. The sale of arms to Israel should cease anyway. That's a given. But that's a slightly different argument. We're looking at this specifically from within the remit of the UN Charter. But the US seems to be in a much ropier position given they are supplying arms to Israel and using their veto. The issue is they should be abstaining as well. Abstention doesn't, of course, kill the resolution, and a ceasefire resolution would then pass should the US not be able to use its veto. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not up on international law per se. I've read up on these articles and I've drawn a conclusion from them. I do know court cases take time, and that is time that the people of Gaza don't, of course, have right now. That said, though, based on the articles aforementioned, and also the violations the US appears guilty of according to the Genocide Convention too, there seems to be a case against them here. In the immediate, though, if the UN can enforce those aforementioned articles that the US clearly seem in violation of, then their failure to not do so, given the US will not do the right thing and repeatedly are not doing the right thing, is equally as damaging to the people of Gaza as well. Something needs doing. Functionally, with the US proving itself to be a threat to security, it really shouldn't be on the Security Council at all, or certainly shouldn't be casting its vote on this particular matter at the very least, because their habit of rendering the UN toothless is undermining the entire institution. But then I suppose when you think about it, all of the permanent council members are all of the old colonial powers, aren't they? So therein lies the rub and the source of the lack of democracy, when some voices are clearly very much louder than others. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say in the comments below and be part of the conversation on this. Meanwhile, Here's a video recommendation where Israel have slammed the UN with their favourite weasel excuse by weaponising anti-Semitism against Antonio Guterres for triggering Article 99. Newsflash to them, it isn't racist to criticise your state, or your government, or their actions. And nobody is talking about your religion here. But the genocide you're conducting in Gaza, well, Israel have cried wolf too often on this now, I think, and it's no longer cutting through with the vast majority of people worldwide. They are sickened by it. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.